All right, Eric Duke McCaskill here again at the RISE conference here at Heritage High School in Newport, Good News, Virginia. I'm here with Mrs. Maritsa Alger, and she happened to come in and looking for her colleagues, Gary Hunter and Marvin Harris and Lisa Searles Law of the Newport News School Board. And you are an educator,
Yes.
Ms. Alger, and what has changed over the years since you've been in the classroom, and what do you see the greatest changes have?
In terms of the changes, I see greater social emotional needs of students. The whole thing about trauma informed is real. I think we're recognizing it now, as we should, and we're realizing that it's important to meet students where they are.
Just share a little bit back of your background.
Sure, absolutely. I was born in New York City in the Bronx. I was born in a community that definitely struggled. I would say 20% of the students during the time that I was growing up was reading on level. A lot of immigrants in the community, and so it was a place where my family fortunately had to rely on the teachers to help us, but at the same time they struggled because they didn't know the language. I was the first one born in this country.
What are your roots?
Oh, Cuban, Puerto Rican. My father is Cuban and my mother is Puerto Rican.
Okay, all right.
So given all of that, I was able to go to college. So I was the first one to graduate from college. And become a professional. So, and I decided to go into teaching because to me it was really important to stress education. Education meant everything to me, and especially to my family. And I wanted the same for other children. And to me, taking a community and having those high expectations and that level of achievement was critical for me. And I always, said to students along the way, if this is something that I can do, you can do it, and we can certainly do it together. So after being in teaching for a while, I became a specialist, then an assistant principal, as well as a principal. I was a principal for 15 years. In a nearby urban environment, and I was able to turn around a school and help create greater achievement for students and for the community simply through high expectations, as well as the belief system that, together we can, make things happen.
Yes, indeed. And you mentioned earlier achievement gap. Some years ago, when I moved back to the area, my wife and I moved back from Maryland. I began work being out of the corporate world, in the financial services business, and start being gang coordinator, gang prevention coordinator for Boys and Girls Club. And we did a conference, downtown Boys and Girls Club, closing the digital gap. But then we have an achievement gap. Will you share more about that?
In terms of achievement gap, it's just a difference in performance levels as far as students go. One particular group that is of interest to me is one, for example, students that are economically disadvantaged. So we want their performance to be at par and make sure that those opportunities are there for them, and as well as results and outcomes. So in order to achieve that, sometimes you have to apply as a building leader just different strategies so that you can help to close those gaps. It's definitely possible. It does take a lot of work and it takes time. It's not something that necessarily one should expect to happen like in a year for it to be for the results to be long lasting, but you want it to be gradual and increase so that you have long lasting results for the community.
The keynote speaker, Robert Jackson, spoke of absentee fathers and childhood trauma. And he asked the boys that were sitting, how many of you are not growing up with your dad? And the majority of them stood up. And we find that that's a real serious challenge, especially in the African American culture. The research says that 70% of fathers are not there in the African American culture. And how do you see that and in the Hispanic culture, there's some challenges there as well, but not as much as the African in terms of absentee dad.
Well, the challenge is there. I know that, for example, growing up, the incarceration rates were high in New York City. And that created a problem because once a parent or father became incarcerated, it threw the family back in poverty, deeper poverty than where they were. And that is a reality for many people growing up. And the thing is, folks may not realize it, how different systems, it is a complex system that impacts a child. But, I always say this, in the school, we have control of what's going on to a certain degree. And so if we can make that school environment inviting, accepting, one with high expectations, we're doing what's great for the students and also for the community, in spite of what is happening outside. Whether the father is incarcerated or the father is just absent, whatever the case may be, we have ways of overcoming those obstacles, and it's something that we have to buy into and we have to believe in order to create that environment.
Yes, and that speaks to me. Because I was one of those boys, didn't know where my dad was. After I came back here, I was with grandparents that didn't have the formal education. They were hard workers. They migrated from North Carolina, but I was a troubled boy. I was an angry boy. I was an insecure boy, had speech impediment problem right here at Booker T. Washington Elementary School during the days of segregation, by the way. And, of course, we had corporal punishment, and I got it from the first grade to the fourth until the fifth grade. My fifth grade teacher saw my potential when I didn't. And rather than harsh language, she that's why these virtues are so personal to me. Her name was Miss Carrie Brown. She founded the Newsom House here in Newport, and I lived 2 doors down, so she knew my family history. She knew that I was a fatherless boy, so she took time with me. And as a result, I came into class with Congressman Bobby Scott. He was in Group 1. His dad was a surgeon. His mom was a professional educator. And here comes little Eric with grandparents. Dad's whereabouts unknown. Mom lived in New York. And Miss Brown turned me around. So by the end of the...
And that's what I'm talking about.
She turned... She spoke into my life.
It takes one person.
One person.
In your life.
One person.
That's exactly right. And the same thing happened for me.
Yeah.
I had a teacher who talked to us about college and what it was. Not really knowing the term or understanding it, but she, at 5th grade, imagine,
Turn around grade.
and said, you guys have a right to go to college, and we're starting now. And could you imagine that? And so that to me is planting the seed. And when you plant those seeds, you don't forget. And that's why I'm here. Because to make sure that those seeds are planted as much as we can to different students, whoever they are. It could be students who come from any walk of life, but because as trauma-informed doesn't apply for just one group. It applies to every group, to all. And I think that to me is what we do. We plant seeds and we continue to grow.
Yes, we do. And trauma-informed, I am really excited to see the awareness increasing in trauma. I'm a parent educator for the Juvenile Domestic Relations course, and we've had training in that, and it's an eye-opener in terms of children who may have been diagnosed as ADD and ADHD, when they actually suffer from PTSD from the adverse childhood experiences that they see. So what is Newport News Public Schools doing to address that?
That's something that I'm sure their counselors are getting trained as well as staff. There's a program called PBIS that's across the state that's being applied, where it's a school-wide it's a school-wide philosophy that changes the culture of the school. And once you have that cultural change where you feel the pride, sense of self, all those pieces, and then being able to work with children one by one in terms of meeting their individual needs. Because at the same time, we have to individualize needs as
Yes.
we're meeting whole
Right.
groups
Yeah.
or whole school, I
Yes.
should say.
Yes, yes.
So-
and you're singing the song that mission that we've been on for 20 years, restorative practice and changing the culture by changing the language and the approach to correction of behavior that may be considered aberrant, if you will. But it's restorative practice, it's creating awareness and helping parents, empower these parents because many of them are going through traumatic experiences themselves. And so we want to thank you.
Thank you.
For
Yes.
being on this mission of
Absolutely.
compassion,
Right.
virtues, and,
Right,
and appreciate what you do
Thank
for
you
our
so
children
much.
in Newport News Public
Well,
Schools.
thank you for your work.
Thank you. Any
thank you.
closing comments?
No, just I'm excited. I'm excited to have been appointed as school board member here in Newport News, and I think it's an awesome opportunity. I am definitely ready for the work. I've been doing the work all my life, and I am just excited to be here and to have that opportunity. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Ms. Maritsa Alger,
Yes.
Newport News
Thank you.
school board member, and it seems like we've had value added, an asset, additional asset to the school board members who we have an awesome. Newport News is very fortunate to have school board members who are compassionate. We have compassion, and that is so important because many of these students are living in very adverse conditions, one of which our organization is Aqueduct Public Housing. We go into Aqueduct. We just had a Christmas event there called RV, people call the group Royal Virtues Posse.
Okay.
And we teach them these virtues, and a lot of them go to Kim Creek, Gildersleeve, and Minchfield. And so we invited police officers in. We call it
Excellent.
police present with presence. So they come in, Texas Road Steakhouse, Cheddar's, Chick-fil-A,
Yeah.
Mission Barbecue, and Buffalo Wild Wings brought the food in. And
Nice.
so the officers come in, and then we had two teachers from Kim Creek.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was at the far part. It's in the gym in Aqueduct where the Boys and Girls Club meet, so we partnered with them. And all this commotion was going on. I said, what is going on? Is Beyonce coming in here? Or what? It was two teachers. They're teachers coming into Aqueduct. And they were of the ivory hue, not the ebony hue. So that was exciting for them. And then Dr. G at Gildersleeve, assistant principal, came in.
Right.
He's from New York also. Of Puerto Rican descent. Dr. G, Yeso, I just saw him, came in, and they were excited to see their teachers come in.
That's awesome.
So we're just excited about what's going on, and thank God for compassionate, purposeful idealism. We need idealism to hope for a better world.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and we thank you so
Yes.
much. Until next time, signing off for VTV. This is Eric Duke McCaskill. See you next time. Still here at the RISE Conference at Heritage High School in Newport, Good News, Virginia. All right. God bless. All right.